You're listening to a fight against free kill laws from AMP Media Production Studio.
Welcome to the Fight Against Free Kill Laws with Ed Salazar, where we give a voice to those who have suffered firsthand from medical malpractice. In Florida, families devastated by medical negligence are left without justice because of a law many don't even know exists. Florida's free kill law prevents families from holding doctors accountable. These are real stories with real loss and no justice. Contact Ed at 561-239-2417 or visit afreekill.com. Today we uncover the truth, share real stories, and demand change.
Hello friends, thank you again for joining us. Kind of a solemn day for those of us in this movement. We've gotten some communications from our legislators that indicate that this thing is being slow-walked, something terrible. We were very, very hopeful that we were going to get this done. It was going to fly this year. But now we're not as certain as we had been. But as Lauren Koryanko said, it ain't over till it's over. But I want to share something with you. Can we put up the first screenshot, please? Okay, this is a letter that Cindy got from Senator Yarborough. As session is moving into its next phase, many committees, including Judiciary, are no longer being provided meeting blocks. Why not? This precludes the opportunity to add Senate Bill 1700 to an agenda. That said, while the Senate is in possession of House Bill 6003, as passed by the House by an overwhelming majority, I might add, there is not current support in the chamber to take it up because an outcome different from what took place during the 2025 session is not expected. So what does that mean? It means, to me, it means that they're pretty confident that even if it did get passed by the Senate again, that DeSantis would veto it. But that also tells me that even though we have these senators that say that they're in support of 1700, if it were vetoed, they wouldn't make a motion to override it, even if they had a 2/3 majority. Okay, somebody tell me I'm wrong. Unless the Speaker, I'm sorry, could we go back to the screenshot, please? Unless the Speaker and or Governor changes their respective position, it is not prudent to use, it is not a prudent use of time for the Senate to take up the matter this session. Okay, now this is from Senator Yarborough. I believe he's Duval County, primarily up in Jacksonville area. So this again tells me several things. That even though they're willing to say that they will support the bill, that they will go so far as to co-sponsor the bill, they still, in advance, have made up their mind that should it get vetoed, they would not move to override the veto. And again, the question is, why not? I have another. Can we go to Judiciary 2 the second? Okay, now this is kind of a summary of everything that we were just talking about. Give me just 1 second. Okay, so if we just call this one, let that sink in. Okay, let this sink in, friends. The Senate Judiciary Committee will not meet again this session. Well, they're not the only committee. There's the Rules Committee, and we're going to get to that in just a moment. That means that Senate Bill 1700 cannot be placed on the agenda because the Judiciary Committee is not meeting again this session. Well, the session isn't going to terminate for some time, so you got to wonder. The Senate has House Bill 6003, which already passed in the House, but leadership, that's the kind of ambiguous who exactly they're referring to, but leadership says there is not current support to take it up. Again, why not? Unless the Speaker and/or Governor changes their position, the Senate will not act. So they're already making this position, even though the bill was never debated in the Senate. It was not voted down. It was not even put up to a vote. It was not defeated on merit. It never got a chance to get up to bat. It is being prevented from moving forward. This is not about policy analysis. What is this really about? You've got to wonder who our senators are listening to. Are they listening to their constituents? What would happen? What do you think would happen if this came up for a popular vote? Do you think the general public, which way do you think they would vote? So this tells me that our legislature is not listening to their constituents. They're listening to their lobbyists. And who are their lobbyists? I can only presume, without any concrete knowledge, but I can only presume that it's the AMA, the Florida Medical Association, the Florida Hospital Association, anyone who has an interest in keeping these lawsuits from ever coming to court. Can we pull up the screenshot that's titled Lobbyists, please? Okay, I found this very, very interesting. 50% of U.S. senators become lobbyists. 47% of U.S. House men become lobbyists. So what is so lucrative about becoming a lobbyist after you've served as a legislator? We know, we all know what the answer is. This is not a representative government. This is a national crime syndicate. And I think that the same dynamic is holding true in our Florida legislature. And I challenge anyone to prove that statement wrong. May we put up the email, please? Okay, like Lauren said, it ain't over till it's over. Senator Pasademo. Now, I met her at the Henry County delegation meeting. And, her demeanor to me seemed at least receptive. I believe she terms out this year. So perhaps she might be more inclined to work with us. Let's hope so. But this is the information on how to contact her by email. Sherry Green is her, I believe, her legislative assistant. Also get in contact with her. Call that phone number for her as many times as you possibly can. The Senate President is Ben Albritton. Now, I know that Senator Albritton had a recent hospitalization. I don't know if he's back on the job yet, but we also have his Senate assistant, Jared Richards. Please contact him. And by all means, especially those of you who are relatively new to our organization, flood Governor DeSantis' office with as many statements of advocacy for the abolishment of this horrible law as you possibly can. We cannot have too much communication going out there. For the rest of this this podcast, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to re-show the interview that we had with Cindy Jenkins. It was almost a year ago now. And a lot of you are new to our organization and you don't really know Cindy's story in its entirety. It's tragic. It's compelling. Cindy has all her ducks in a row. And I don't think that anybody could make an intelligent argument that would dispute her grounds for wanting this law abolished. So thank you very, very much for joining us this session, and please take the time to watch this interview. Thank you, and we'll see you again next. Again, you know, with so many new people that are joining our organization, if you would like to be interviewed, to be a guest on our podcast, please get in touch with me. I believe my contact information will show up at the end of Cindy's presentation. But I'm easy to find. Ask anybody. And we look forward to talking to you, and we look forward to seeing you again next week. Thank you for your time. And on a rainy day in South Florida, we welcome you to this, and this is our 9th show in this series, and we have some amazing news, very, very encouraging news. I'm going to read you a press release that I received from my lawyer. Tort reform. Florida lawmakers repeal free kill law on wrongful death. Amid a flurry of activity in Tallahassee in the last week of the legislative session, Florida legislators have voted to abolish a 35-year-old law that currently prohibits adult children over 25 and their parents from pursuing pain and suffering damages from wrongful death cases resulting from malpractice. It was one of several policy bills attorneys in the state were watching. The measure, House Bill 6017, targets a gap in Florida's so-called free kill statute, which has long prevented certain family members from seeking compensation for medical negligence. The bill passed its final Senate vote Thursday with a 33-4 majority, following a 104-6 approval in the House on March 26. It now heads to Governor Ron DeSantis for signing. I can't begin to tell you what this means to me, my family, Christopher's kids, and so many other families in the state of Florida. Unfortunately, I don't think there's going to be any avenue for anything retroactive to be done. But just knowing that we're so close to having this abolished permanently is huge. And the guest we have for tonight's show, Cindy Jenkins, she has been on the apex. She's been in the vanguard of this fight. She's one of the most tenacious advocates for the abolishment of this bill that I know of. And she was interviewed recently by a news studio, and we'd like to show you that clip if we can bring that up now.
A big step forward today for families who have been fighting for years to get Florida's so-called free kill law repealed. Late this afternoon, the state Senate passed a bill that would fully repeal this law, and it's already passed the House. So now there's just one more hurdle. Inside the Senate chambers, families whose loved ones died in Florida hospitals watched anxiously as senators made history.
This is a 35-year-old law. It needs to be repealed. It's unjust. It shouldn't be on the books.
The legislature, for the first time, passing a bill to repeal the so-called free kill law.
Much to our surprise, the bill came up. He said there were no amendments on the desk. He read the bill as a clean repeal, and it almost unanimously passed the Senate floor. And I would say our reaction is shock.
Shock because all previous efforts to get the law repealed have failed. It's a law Cindy Jenkins didn't know about until her 25-year-old daughter, Taylor, died.
If you lose your loved one to medical negligence in a Florida hospital and they are 25 or older, unmarried, and don't have children under 25, you have no recourse. Your right to the civil justice system is blocked.
Like Jenkins, Sabrina Davis has made countless trips to the state capitol since her father died in a Florida hospital due to medical negligence.
Today was history. Today we made history. I feel like we're one step closer to restoring the freedom that my dad fought for.
Thankful, but we don't want to have a premature celebration because we're not done. We want to see this successfully get signed off on, and I think then we'll really be able to celebrate.
The bill now heads to Governor Ron DeSantis' desk.
You know, I don't know what the governor will do. We are known as the free state of Florida. I hope he does the right thing.
Everybody that wants to see this 35-year-old unjust law truly finally repealed, they need to contact the governor and let him know.
These families know repealing this law won't bring justice for their own loved ones, but they're determined that no other family will be left without a voice.
This will not change anything for us. We will always be blocked out of the judicial system. We did this in honor of our loved ones, and so that everybody from July 1st on, if we can get this signed into law, will never meet this fate.
Now, depending on when this bill gets to the governor's desk, he will either have 7 or 14 days to sign it, to veto it, or to do nothing and then have it become law without his signature. If it does become law, it will take effect July 1st.
And without any further ado, I take great pleasure in introducing you to Cindy Jenkins.
Thank you for having me on, Ed. I'm so sorry that we share this commonality that we both lost a child to Florida's very bad laws, very unfair laws.
Well, we can, take some joy, as you said in that clip, that hopefully after July 1st, this will never happen again in the state of Florida. If you would, Cindy, just tell us a little bit about your daughter.
Yeah, so I've been a 100% single mom since my girls were 9 and 5. Essentially, my girls have been my reason for living, for breathing, and everything that I've done since they took their first breaths. My whole world has revolved around them. And really, when Taylor was killed, we were kind of on cloud 9. Taylor had finished college. She graduated at 20 years old. She was so incredibly smart. She was identified as gifted in first grade. Just so smart, so spunky, a beautiful soul, loved everybody. People loved to be around her. And people referred to me and my 2 girls as a unit. We just had this incredibly special bond. We're really just like a little family that have always been super close. And I got a call in the very early morning hours on March 18th. It was the Florida Highway Patrol. The officer said, "I'm a dad." I'm sorry, I'm going to get emotional. He said, "I'm a dad, and I have stayed after my shift to track you down because I wanted to let you know that your daughter was rear-ended and she's at a hospital here in Orlando." And I did actually immediately ask him. The first question I asked was, which hospital? Because I have family members in healthcare and friends in healthcare. And when he said the name of the hospital, I just automatically knew in my gut it was not going to end well. So I packed my suitcase. She'd already been at the hospital for hours. Packed my suitcase because I'm in Jacksonville. She was in the accident in Orlando. And rushed down as quick as I could get there. Immediately knew something was off. Just the behavior of the staff. I'm pretty good at assessing the situation and just really taking everything in so that I can determine what I need to do under the circumstances. Things were just really, really, really off. And I now know that they killed her on day 1. They essentially let her bleed to death. But she was in the hospital for 5 additional days. And I wouldn't know any of this had I not been able to secure a copy of her medical record. I wouldn't have known her true cause of death had I not paid for a private autopsy. The cause of death that the hospital told me and everyone that was there. And the medical examiner didn't exist. The medical examiner ended up changing the cause of death on her death certificate to the true cause of death. And essentially what I learned happened was that the nurses began notifying the trauma surgeon very early after she got there of all of the glaring signs of internal bleeding. Her heart rate was through the roof. Her blood pressure had tanked. There was blood in her urine. Her urine output had decreased, and her abdomen was distended. And the trauma surgeon that this hospital had on staff kept ordering more IV fluids. Hours later, he finally rushed her for CT imaging stat. And when the radiologist notified him that she had blood in her abdominal cavity, she then laid there for 6 more hours before they rushed her to emergency surgery to stop the bleeding. In her record, it states the trauma surgeon documented that she had no signs of brainstem function upon exam after leaving the operating room to repair the torn artery. We were not told that until over 2 days later. We were left clinging to hope, thinking there was a chance. And now I know she'd lost so much blood by the time they rushed her to surgery. Her record shows her heart had collapsed. Her organs were all failing, and she was getting no oxygen to her brain. Had she survived what they did, she would have been maybe the equivalent of a 6-month-old, if even that, due to all the brain damage similar to a drowning victim, where there's just no oxygen reaching the brain. So, I find out they've sent an incorrect cause of death to the medical examiner. I find out what really happened. I set out on a mission. This is not about money. I set out on a mission to hold them accountable. I still couldn't get parts of her record. I ended up later having an attorney order those for me, because they will not do anything for you if you don't have representation from an attorney. You are nothing to them. You can file HIPAA complaints. You can do all the things I did. If they don't get a letter from an attorney demanding things, they're not going to give it. So I find out I don't have a right to an attorney. I ended up paying for a lot of things out of pocket to uncover what happened. I find out they lie in her record and keep her a whole extra night. Unbeknownst to me, the doctor documents in her record that I was undecided about organ donation, and I asked them to keep her an additional evening. Meanwhile, I'm heading home to Jacksonville. I'd already signed consent for organ donation. I'm thinking I'm going to go to Advent late the next day for the honor walk. So I find all of these things in her record, covering up what really happened, sending a false cause of death to the medical examiner, fraudulent billing practices, keeping her an extra night so that they can charge, all of these things, falsifying a medical record. And I tried every angle. I just wanted accountability. I called the sheriff's office. I've tried every angle I could to get some level of accountability. And what I've repeatedly been told is this all falls under medical malpractice. It's medical negligence, and you need an attorney. And people...
I'm sorry. When she first was admitted to the hospital, when their initial assessment, when you got the actual true medical records, was there evidence of hypovolemia? Her low blood count?
Oh yes, she was in hypovolemic shock. Mm-hmm.
And that was denied in the initial medical record, or?
What they sent as the cause of death, and this would have been a whole different set of malpractice, they said she had subdural hematomas and a midline shift of her brain. Yeah. So honestly, for that whole weekend, I'm saying, why do you not have my child in surgery evacuating these hematomas? And they just say, oh, it doesn't work in these cases. And I'm thinking, how does evacuating hematomas not work? Well, it turns out she didn't have that brain injury. And had she had it, the hospital would have been putting the general public in immediate jeopardy, because they did notify the neurosurgeon who was on call and said, we need you to get in here per Department of Health guidelines for a level 2 trauma center. An on-call neurosurgeon has 30 minutes to be bedside when they are called. So the radiologist misread the initial CT scans, diagnosed her with subdural hematomas and a midline shift. They contact the neurosurgeon. He shows up 7 hours later. And in the meantime, she's laying there bleeding internally. So they have her heavily sedated with...
I'm sorry to interrupt you again, Cindy. So what she actually had was like trauma to her abdominal aorta, or what was it?
She had a torn left internal iliac artery, which it's a major artery that attaches to your aorta.
Right. And that was missed on the initial CT?
So the initial CT of that area said she had traces of free-form fluid in the abdomen, and they did no troubleshooting. Furthermore, the CT scan from the radiologist, the neuroradiologist, said that excessive motion and streak artifact limited his evaluation. They did no further imaging. They contacted the neurosurgeon, who didn't show up for 7 hours. They placed batches and batches of orders, many of which did not get followed through on. Critical orders, like placing a central line, placing a brain monitor. All these things that they ordered didn't get carried out until after 7 hours later when the neurosurgeon showed up. So in the meantime, the nurses are notifying of all the signs of internal bleeding, the trauma surgeon's just ordering IV fluids. It's a train wreck. I paid for an independent medical review, and the physician who conducted that said he can't even fathom how so many hands in a pot were all so recklessly negligent. And he said it's reckless negligence. It was an utter disregard for her life and safety.
It's incredible. It's just
And
incredible.
you know what is so horrific is that these physicians are still practicing at the same hospital with zero consequences. So there's been no justice. I wonder how many people did they harm. Well, I know the neurosurgeon, his record on Department of Health, well, they'll tell you he has a squeaky clean record. But when you look at the Florida insurance regulation website, which is where people really need to go to research a doctor, you cannot count on the Department of Health. It's very difficult for these doctors to get a mark on their record. The reason is, for example, the neurosurgeon had settled 3 cases outside of court. So he technically had 3 strikes on his record. He killed another patient, and he seriously caused life-altering injuries to 2 others. He settled those cases outside of court, so they don't count. My child is a free kill, so she doesn't count. And yet he's still practicing in the state of Florida with that same hospital.
So for the benefit of our viewers, tell us again where you found that information.
You can go to the Florida Office of Insurance Regulation website, and you can do a search to see what claims have been paid out. And any claim that a doctor has had their insurance company pay out for will show up on that website. It's really the only way most people are going to find about most incidents, because what I've also learned is when a doctor settles a case outside of court, which they try to do, because if they don't and it goes to trial, it actually will count as a strike on their record through Department of Health.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of them will settle outside of court, most of them. Then it doesn't count as anything. And a lot of times part of that settlement is that the family members will not report the doctor to Department of Health or Agency for Healthcare Administration. And they'll also sign a confidentiality. So it's a big cover up, and you really have to know to just go to the Office of Insurance Regulation to look up doctors.
So tell us, you said that they had falsified the initial death certificate.
Mm-hmm.
And the initial death certificate indicated that it was cranial hemorrhaging, subdural hematomas, things like that.
Just subdural, not even cranial hemorrhaging, just subdural hematomas and a midline shift.
How did you get the true diagnosis? How did you get this death certificate revised?
Ironically, I called the medical, so I knew I have an undergrad degree in special education. I used to teach special education, so I had to study a lot about different brain injuries and how they impact people and how to work with people. So I was on a mission to make sure that it was documented that her record showed subdural hematomas, but no craniotomy, no surgical intervention had ever taken place for these brain injuries. That when there's a midline shift, it said she had a 7-millimeter midline shift. The guidelines in Florida, the standard of care is to operate. It doesn't matter. They're supposed to operate and evacuate the hematomas to correct the midline shift. Mm-hmm. So my mission started off as, I need the medical examiner to simply document that the neurosurgeon never performed the evacuation of the hematomas. No surgery was performed. And he just advised me that that was not within his scope. And I said, okay, then she's being sent for autopsy. I'll have a pathologist document that there was no craniotomy. Well, the pathologist is the one who documented that there are no subdural hematomas, there's no midline shift of the brain. She documented the torn artery and all of the findings. So initially, when I called the medical examiner's office, they said we don't change death certificates. The doctor's already reviewed the death summary sent by the hospital. I guess they send a death summary, and then the pathologist does an external evaluation, and they decide to they document what the hospital sent. When I called them and said, well, if you're telling me you don't change this, I need to contact the news stations and make sure everybody's aware that there's a cause of death on my child's death certificate that a very well-known top pathologist in our state documented doesn't exist. So his assistant asked me to hold. She spoke with the medical examiner, came back on the phone. She said that apparently this pathologist is in Orlando. People nationally use her, but they know of this pathologist. So she said the medical examiner was going to call the pathologist, order a copy of the autopsy, speak with the pathologist, and they would get back with me. And sure enough, I got a call back within about, I think it was either the next day or 2 days later. And the assistant said he's completely changed the death certificate. He's going to send you, or we'll be able to release a new death certificate and a new medical examiner's report. And so that's how I got it changed.
So is that when you first learned about free kill laws?
Yeah, so I started calling for help. I can't remember, it's all such a blur, and I've invested every second of my life in this since it happened, but I don't remember when exactly. Yeah, I think that's when I started saying this is horrific. First of all, we were very abused and traumatized the 5 days she was in the hospital. It was awful. I was showing them Florida statutes saying I have the right as her mom to see her record. They wouldn't let me see her record. They wouldn't let me get her transferred to a different hospital, which is also a statute. You have the right to be transferred from one Florida hospital that's public to another. They were just blowing me off. I mean, I had no power at all. It was like she was their hostage. And I just wanted her sent somewhere else. Everyone who had flown in or come in was begging me to get her out of that facility. I was doing everything I could to get her out. And then I leave after they officially pronounce her brain dead and all of this stuff unfolds. And then I start reaching out because I think I'm going to hold this hospital and these doctors accountable. And I'm going to make sure that they can never do something so egregious to anyone else again. And then I start calling, and every attorney would say, how old was Taylor? And I'd say 25. She had just turned 25 2.5 months prior to being rear-ended. So I'd say she was 25. Was she married? No, she was about to get engaged. She had met the love of her life. They'd planned out their entire future. They just hadn't gotten engaged yet. And did she have children? And I'd say no. And they're like, we can't help you because of this law. And I just thought it couldn't be real. I started sharing stuff on social media. My friends around the nation thought there's no way. They were having attorneys that they knew in other states call me, and everyone was having this aha moment about this is real. And what was probably the most shocking at all is that Taylor was born and raised right here in Florida, and I had never heard of this law. I mean, I've lived here since the beginning of 1995. I had never heard of a free kill law or any law that protects medical negligence.
I was a clinical respiratory therapist for 30 years. I never heard of it. It's just incredible. Just incredible.
It's incredible. And I own a business now. I used to be an educator, but now I'm a real estate professional and I run a successful business. And I don't think there's a day that goes by that I don't think, how is their logic that the way that you attract doctors to Florida is to have laws that protect them if they're negligent? I mean, they preach, oh, we can't change this law. We have to have all these protections or we won't have any doctors in Florida. What kind of doctors are you trying to attract to the state? I know I wouldn't want to work. If they started giving real estate agents around Florida free passes for doing really bad things to people, I mean, it wouldn't even be killing them, but if they just started giving them a free pass, it's not a place that I would want to practice real estate because it lowers the credibility of the entire industry. And again, we wouldn't even be
Right.
killing people in my
Right.
industry, but I don't want to work around people that have to be protected from doing bad things.
Did you have any physician tell you, any neurologist, that had she received if she had received transfusions initially when she got to the hospital, that they might have avoided the brain damage?
Yeah, I mean, the record shows that she just laid there and bled out over hours. I think for whatever reason, so far into it, they did a EKG, and that's when they realized her heart was collapsed. And that's when they rushed her to CT scanning. And that's when the radiologist notified him that she had blood in her abdominal cavity, and he left her laying there for 6 more hours. I paid a Florida very well-credentialed expert witness who's also well-credentialed physician to look through her record. And even though I don't have access to the courts, to essentially do a pre-suit. And he said it's probably the most reckless negligence he's ever seen. He doesn't understand why the nurses weren't screaming at the head nurse to get a doctor in there that
They may have
you think they
very
were.
well been. You know,
Yeah.
We only have a few minutes left. Do you have any thoughts you'd like to summarize what you're feeling right now?
I'm always going to feel defeated in terms of, I was actually thinking about this when I came home from Tallahassee. It feels like such a big win to get this bill as far as it's ever been. And I hope and pray that DeSantis signs off on it. I think it's really hitting me now that even though it will be so good for other people, I'm not getting my daughter back. My younger daughter, literally it was 9 months after this happened. She graduated from Taylor's alma mater. Taylor went to USF in Tampa. And it was literally the saddest day of our lives. I was trying to be a strong mom and make it happy, but she walked up to me and she lost it. And it wasn't happy tears. It was the first big event where it was not the three of us. We're never going to get her back. She will never have justice. Those doctors are still there hurting who knows who else. Is this really the United States of America? Because it's not the country I thought we were living in before this happened to my family.
Well, there's more work to be done. Cindy, when I wrote my book, I think it got published in 2014. I gave lectures. I became aware of the National Patient Safety Foundation, and all I could think of doing was, I tried to spread the word. I gave talks on patient safety issues at Northern Florida University, at Hillsborough College in Tampa, in Daytona State College, Broward, and we're trying to raise awareness. I just so much wish I had known about you and the other ladies. Yana Benoon and her grandson Ethan, amazing people.
Amazing.
Allison Ashley, Melody McDonald, Linda Lohman. I mean, there have been people fighting this fight for a long time, and you all deserve so much admiration for what you're doing. But like you say, those moments of despair, those nightmares, those heartaches, they don't go away. But there are a lot of people in the state of Florida that owe you and these other fighters so much.
Well, thank you. We've been fighting hard. I mean, it won't change anything for us, but I don't want another message about another person that lost their family member. I get them all the time. They lose a family member, they find out about this law, they Google to see if it's even real, and then they start reaching out, and I don't want it to happen anymore.
The issue of sovereign immunity is a whole nother can of worms. Perhaps another time we can have that discussion.
I would love to have that discussion with you. It's very wrong. And it's just another way to not only have free kills, but to also get away with medical negligence that people survive.
Well, this is something else that not only the people in Florida, but all over this nation need to know about.
Yes,
Thank you,
for
Cindy.
sure.
Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate you, Ed.
Okay, and to all our viewers, thank you for your support. We'll see you again.
Thank you for watching The Fight Against Free Kill Laws with Ed Salazar, where we interview those who have dealt firsthand with medical malpractice. Families are devastated by medical malpractice and left with no justice. This isn't just a loophole. It's a failure to protect the ones we love. It's time to change the law. It's time for accountability. Contact your state legislatures, visit afreekill.com for more information on how to help, or contact Ed at 561-239-2417. Because every life should matter.